Congresswoman Cori Bush, thanks so much for joining us on UpFront.
Thanks for having me.
You recently fought a hard battle to keep your congressional seat, ultimately losing out in the Democratic primary to your opponent, Wesley Bell. In your district, historically, incumbents have been pretty safe from challenges from inside the party. Why do you think you faced such a hard challenge?
100%, because of my position as it relates to Palestinian liberation. I am the lead sponsor of the Ceasefire Now resolution in Congress, and I sponsored that legislation, introduced it with Representative Rashida Tlaib and several others. But not only did I introduce the legislation, but I kept speaking up. I kept raising the issue. We put pressure on the administration. And so because I was out front pushing, I wasn't going to be silenced because of what someone could do to me. And so I believe that AIPAC, this pro-Israel lobby group that, by their own admission, they say that their sole purpose is to elect and support candidates that are unwavering in their support for the far-right Israeli government. They took that as a threat. Let me say this, if I had not sponsored that legislation, I probably would be returning to Congress in January.
In light of that logic that you got right in the crosshairs of AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, would you have done anything different?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My purpose going to Congress in the first place was to be able to speak up and stand up for those who are the most vulnerable in our communities, to be able to fight for justice and freedom, and that doesn't have borders. But also, this was work that, I had been working on prior to entering Congress. This work with me goes back to the Ferguson uprising in 2014, 2015. So I ran on, ending the occupation and supporting Palestinian liberation. So to go into Congress and then to be faced with bombs dropping on a whole population of people and to not say anything? Yeah. Absolutely not. I had to speak up.
That makes sense. There are people, though, who say that came at the expense of the district. That I remember reading a Washington Post article a while back that was sort of saying, there are people who say you're putting your personal politics above your district's interests. People point to missed congressional votes, et cetera. They say Gaza wasn't really it. The people in your district just didn't feel supported. What do you say to that?
It's a lie. Let me say this. Whether it was the media or just what was coming across through the ads, AIPAC was 100% deceptive. They distorted the truth. The information that they put out was, it was lie after lie after lie. They had to run on, she had this many missed votes. Missed votes when I was at home with COVID? Why didn't one commercial out of the multi-million-dollar lies that they put out, why didn't one speak anything about Israel or Gaza? Nothing did. So if you're so strong and you're so right about what you're doing and you believe, why not speak to it?
You talk about the millions and millions and millions. That's not an exaggeration. They spent more than $8 million to back Wesley Bell through its super PAC, the United Democracy Project. We saw Jamal Bowman's race in New York, $14.5 million to boost his opponent's campaign. AIPAC is dumping big money into these campaigns, and they're doing it particularly, look like, against squad members.
Yes.
Why?
Black.
Okay, so two things there. There's the progressive politics, and then all of y'all are black.
Yes.
Talk to me about the black part of it first.
Yeah, so the thing is, when we look at where I believe, I'll say this, where I believe AIPAC is going, they would rather have someone in these seats that is not speaking up for black liberation, who is not making the connection between Black and Palestinian solidarity. They would rather have someone who they believe is, not going to be the activist. I came to Congress as the activist. I call myself the politivist, the politician and the activist. They don't want that in the United States Congress. They don't want that in their politics.
Why are they particularly upset when black people are doing it?
because we are the ones that typically are going to speak up. We're the ones that are going to speak out against injustice. We're the ones that are going to stand up against human suffering that crosses borders. So, of course, we're not the ones that they want to see there. And then also, you know, my work, fighting for the unhoused, fighting for to increase funding for Black maternal health and you know, Black infant mortality, you know, making sure that we are fighting against police violence. Those are things, fighting for reparations. I will continue to fight for reparations for Black folk, for the descendants of enslaved Black people in this country. So those are things that they don't want to see move. And let me say this,
and
too.
they intersect. Help me break something down, though, because the audience is probably saying, well, if you're doing all this awesome stuff for the voters, and the voters see you doing all this awesome stuff, and the voters can vote for you, how does AIPAC stop the voters from seeing all that you do and choosing you? Yeah,
well, because they, what I heard from so many people in my district was, Cori, I love you. You know I'm your biggest supporter, but I'm confused. I'm confused because all of these ads on television are saying, you hate Joe Biden. They're saying you want kids to drink dirty water from lead pipes, and you voted against clean pipes. You know, so there were the distortions of the truth and the misinformation was so it was so vast. And let me say this: if you saw 4 or 5 of my opponents' commercials, you saw 1 of mine. That's what the money did. It was radio, television, internet, you know, and so it was everywhere. And so people were hearing so much of these lies that they were like, well, I don't know what to do. Some people felt like, well, if there's so much money, then maybe that means that he's fighting and she's not. And that's what some people said. We're used to you fighting, and it doesn't look like you're fighting.
Well, you were fighting.
Yeah.
On August 7th, you made a concession speech. You said, AIPAC, I am coming to tear your kingdom down. A lot of people said they understood what you meant. Some people didn't receive it as well. Some seeing it as a biblical reference. Some saying it was even anti-Semitic speech. What did you mean? Tell me. I want you to say what you meant by that.
Yeah. So first of all, they want to say everything that I say is hateful or anti-Semitic or it's this or that. AIPAC is the group that came after me. If it was the NRA, I would have said the NRA. If it was, you know, mostly crypto or mostly, you know, if it was big ag, big oil, I would have been speaking about them. But it was AIPAC who came after me. It was AIPAC who lied on me. It was AIPAC who was deceptive. It's AIPAC who hurt my community and made them believe all of these horrible things about their congresswoman. They divided our community in a way that we were not divided before, and it angers me so much because St. Louis didn't deserve that. They came in with primarily Republican money into a Democratic district, into a deep blue seat to change. And so I said, AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down because you are the ones that came for me. And so what I mean by tear it down, it's not violence. We'll let their far-right Israeli government do the violence, and we're going to fight that too and get this arms embargo done. But I'm not coming at you with violence. I'm a peacekeeper. You know, I'm a lover. That's what I do. I love all people. Their problem is they don't. So for me, tearing your kingdom down means I'm going to fight for campaign finance reform. I'm going to fight to overturn Citizens United and so many other things. I'm not going to give away everything that I plan to do, but this is not about one particular group or being anti-Semitic. You came from me, so I'm talking to you.
You've been very critical of Joe Biden's administration and its support of Israel, calling it a failure in leadership. Well, Biden's no longer in the race. I'm sure you heard. Kamala Harris, the vice president, is now the Democratic nominee. Now we've had a couple months to hear Kamala Harris's positions on what's going on in the Middle East, specifically Israel-Palestine. Do you see a difference between the two?
So one thing about that is difficult because on one hand, I hear that, you know, from both, whether it's President Biden or Vice President Harris, that there is no difference where they stand here. But then I think very recently, maybe in the last couple of days, there was an interview where she said, "I'm going to be my own, I'm my own person, have fresh ideas." And so I'm kind of conflicted on what's going to be different? Because, you know, President Biden said basically they've been lock and step on these decisions, but the vice president speaking to the humanity of Palestinians, you know, publicly, you know, that's appreciated. The fact that she didn't say, yes, Netanyahu is my ally. Okay. But what we need from her is decisive action. What we need from her
She said Israel the United States will always defend Israel's right to defend itself or support Israel's right to defend itself. That sounds like continued aid for weapons.
Absolutely, yes. But when there are people right now who are saying, I can't vote for genocide, I can't vote for her because of this. Some people are saying, I don't even want to be a Democrat anymore because of what I'm seeing and hearing, and there is no change. There's no arms embargo. There's been
Do you feel that way?
Right now, I'm like, so two things with me. Number one, I'm in Missouri. I'm in Missouri.
I'm safe.
Yeah, you know, I'm in Missouri.
For those watching around the world, that means she's safe and she understands that her vote doesn't necessarily sway the election. Just to be clear, though, if the election were today, could you, in good conscience, vote for Kamala Harris?
I don't know. I don't know. But the thing is, me voting, so you said good conscience. Good conscience is different than strategy.
Okay.
So to vote for her because out of strategy, because I definitely don't want a Donald Trump presidency again. What Donald Trump, I feel, can do to whether it's the Black community or women's rights or, you know, the LGBT community, you know, children at the border, all of these issues, you know, so many of the fights that the people are that in this country who are fighting to get the arms embargo, to get the ceasefire, to get the humanitarian aid in. So many of those folks are then going to be pulled to go and fight. Now I got to fight, you know, over here because this is happening to my people or this is happening in my community at the hands of Donald Trump. And so we won't be able to come together like Voltron to be able to then, you know, fight as much to save the lives of Palestinians. So that's my one thing, is just that we're going to be so pulled apart because of what I believe that he would do. And with Kamala Harris, at least we know in so many other areas that those won't be fights, we believe. Yeah. But what I am hearing, and this is why I said, you know, this is strategy versus my good conscience, because what I'm hearing is people say, well, we're talking about fighting fascism. We don't need the fascism that comes along with a Donald Trump presidency. But I feel like I'm seeing fascism right now, you know, with a Joe Biden presidency and a Vice President Harris presidency, a vice president. So that's the issue that, you know.
It's a struggle for lots of people.
Struggle.
Congresswoman Cori Bush, thanks so much for joining us on UpFront.
Thank you for having me.